Hello. Let's pick up where we left off. So last video we showed how to get signed into Teacher Desmos and how to create our first activity. So now let's look into how we can actually use that activity with our classes. So I'm on the screen that we get sent to after we publish the activity. You can always find your activities if you go to teacher.desmos.com and click on custom, and it'll show you a list of every activity you've made. So let's open the one we made last time. So over here, you're able to open the student preview. So if you want to just double check how it looks to students or remind yourself what's in your activity, you can always click that button. But let's talk about sharing that with students, which is the assign button. So if I click on assign, right now the default behavior I'm going to get is it's going to show me a list of my classes. So I've got 3 Google Classroom classes linked with my account, and you can change what classes are linked by clicking the Manage Classes button in the top corner. So I can click the checkbox, and what will happen when I click that checkbox? Well, it says right here, and these are the posting preferences. So right now for me, it will post immediately to Google Classroom, and it will post immediately on student.desmos.com. So if you ever want students to be able to go back and check what activities you've assigned, they can go to student.desmos.com if you have this post preference set. You can click the edit button and change a few settings. For example, you can get it to post as a draft rather than posting it as a post. You can also get it to not post to Google Classroom or not post to student.desmos.com, which I will do occasionally if I don't want students to be able to access it until later. And then once I'm ready, I can click assign and it will show up on my Google Classroom. All right. So the other option I have, if we click this drop down, so there's the assigned classes we just saw, but we can also make a single session code. And this is something I tend to like to do if I'm doing this in a live classroom, because it makes it a bit more challenging or a bit easier for students to access that if their devices aren't hooked up to Google Classroom. So on this page, it's going to give me a preference. So 48 hours is what I'll choose for this one. 2 weeks is also another option. And after that, the code will expire. So let's create an invitation code. All right, so it's created a new activity. You'll see there's a 6-digit code here, and it's telling me that new students can join until the 28th of April, so about 48 hours from now. So that's my activity setup. Now, what's this going to look like? Well, if I click on View Dashboard, it's going to take me to the teacher dashboard. So when I log in, it's going to say, hey, students, and this nice big splash page. So this is why I like doing single session codes for a classroom environment, because it makes it really easy to actually go in and just have this up on the board or on my projector, and students can go to student.desmos.com and type in the 6-digit code rather than having to worry about a link. So if I close that, what you're going to see here is the teacher dashboard. And right now it's kind of empty because there's no students signed in. So what I'm going to do is, if you click this, it'll reopen this dashboard. So I'm going to actually copy this link, and let's go to that link. See what it looks like from the student side when they join. All right, so they're going to see the picture that you selected for the activity. It's going to say the title of the activity and enter your names to begin. So you can always do this as a group activity, as we talked about last time. All right, so once they put that in, they click go, and it's going to load up. And there we go, it's loaded up. So we're going to see the same questions that it asks. What's your favorite color? Well, mine is orange. And then they'll click submit. They can always go back and edit their response. So something some students miss is this button in the top corner here. So if you haven't done this with your class before, you may want to point that out to them, that in the top corner there's 2 pages, and they can figure that out using the next and back button. And then it's asking for the derivatives. Put that in. And the really nice thing about that math input, by the way, is it lets you type very naturally. So what I'm typing is the plus symbol, and then if I type slash for division, it's actually going to create a fraction for me. So I can go in like that. But if students are having a hard time, there's also a keypad, and it'll actually show them all these functions, these buttons. There's a button for pi, the nth root, the square root, all of my trig functions, stat functions, pretty much everything you could want. And then when they're happy, they can submit. All right. And we can see that there's some feedback in here. Ooh, exciting. So let's take a look at this activity here. So if we go back to the teacher Desmos, what's that going to look like? So you can see that we have a student now, Isaac Bergeron, me. And we can see a couple things. So we have 4 views here. So we have a snapshot view, we have summary view, teacher view, and student view. So student view is going to show you what the activity looks like to the students. So this is good if you really want to go in and showcase students like, oh, on this page, you can actually drag these points and it'll change the graph or something like that. Or if you just want to showcase something simple like, well, these are the next buttons in the corner. The teacher view is going to show you student answers. So you can have a couple of options here. There'll be a summary button and a by student button if we have more than one student. So let me add a second student so we can see what that looks like. All right, so we've added a couple of students now. We've got Isaac Bergeron, Euclid, and Norman Osborne. And these students have all added in their answers. As we can see, Euclid just doesn't quite know what to do about calculus. So let's break down what's going on. So on this page here, you notice now that we have a responses and a summary button. So if I click responses, it's going to show every single student's answers. However, if I click summary, it's going to show what the answer is and what students have answered that. So if I go in and change my answer for here to match Norman Osborne's y is equal to 2x, then you're going to notice that it's going to, sometimes it can take a second to refresh. We're going to notice that it actually shows me and Norman Osborne having the same answer, y equals 2x. So that's the difference between summary view and responses view. And it won't do that for text entry, but it will do that for numerical entry. And for graphs especially, if you use the sketch function, it'll show all the graphs on top of each other, which can be helpful to kind of quickly see, oh, look at that. Most of the class has the graphs on top of each other. That's great. Okay, so let's go in and look at some of the other views now that we have more students. So if I go back to summary, we can kind of see where all of our students are in the activity. And you can see they're all sitting on slide 3. And if I move my student, let's say Isaac goes back to the first slide, you can see that he's going to show up here. So you can see individually where everybody is. You can also see if someone hasn't started the activity. And if you click on these, it'll show you the student's screen. So if I want to see what Isaac's up to on screen 1, I can click here and you can see what they've entered and you can see that they've submitted it. But if we go back here and let's say I just want to write nonsense, don't click submit. Now if I click on that again, it's going to show you that they've typed nonsense in, but they haven't submitted it. So you can pretty much see what they're doing at any stage of the activity. So the next view, if we go to student view, that hasn't changed. Even when we have students, that's not going to change. And then finally, let's go back to the teacher view and talk about this little icon here. So there's a little camera icon, and that's for snapshots. So say I really want to highlight Norman Osborne. So let's click on that snapshot. It's going to say snapshot captured. And then under snapshots, you're going to see a little 1 appear. So now we have something to do there. So if I click on snapshots, we're going to see on screen 2, so the slide, this is an answer that's been snapshotted. So if I drag that, I can pop it over here and create groups. So we might want to ask a question about that group. What's missing from this answer? A little bit mean for Norman Osborne. So if we don't want to embarrass anyone, we can always click anonymize and it's going to hide everybody's names. It's going to say Felix now. It's going to replace it with the name of a mathematician. Okay, and that's, if we see with the full class, right, we get a lot of mathematicians' names. So once we've added a snapshot, this is great for that 5 practices. So sequencing, selecting, anticipating, all that sort of thing. So if we want to kind of get a sense of what students are doing, we can do that. Or to share ideas with the class, we can do that here. So if I click present, it's going to pop up. little dashboard here, what's missing from this answer, and it's going to show the answers we've dragged in, and it's going to even name the collection. We can reorder those collections. We can change the question. What do you notice? That sort of thing. You can even add photos using your computer or uploading a computer. You can also use your smartphone. You can email yourself a magic link by clicking on this link here, and then it'll send you a link so that you can use your smartphone to take those pictures. All right. So that's the basic views that we have. Now, there's a few other things we can do here. So as you see, we've anonymized all of our students, but if you hover over them, so just something to be careful about, it's going to show you who they are. So don't leave your mouse pointer hovering over a student's name if you're trying to keep things hidden. So this here, we have a couple of options. So obviously we can navigate between the slides by clicking on them. But once we're here, we have 3 buttons. So we have the anonymize button, so that changes these from anonymous to non-anonymous. And then we also have a pacing button. So with the pacing button, what I can do is control what slides students can see. So say I only want them to be working on the favorite color at the start of class. So if I click on that, I have the option to restrict to screen 1. So now if we go here, let's refresh the page because it's a little bit challenging when we have everyone logged in at once. So I've restricted to slide 1. And as you can see, my navigation buttons have been grayed out, so I can't go back and forth. However, I can activate this button. So I can see now I have the option to stop pacing. I can add the next slide, so now they have the full activity. Or I can use these little arrows to kind of pace the whole class. Everybody's moved to the second activity. You can see now, even though I was on the first slide before, I've been dragged to the second slide. And then I can stop, and then now I have full access to the activity. So that's the pacing button. And then the third button up here is the pause button. So if I click on that, the top bar is going to turn green here to remind you the activity is paused. And the students, it's going to say activity paused. Pretty clear for them. So this is great if you want to get their attention, bring them back to the main classroom to talk about something. And then finally, over here, I have the option to change from time entered to name to shuffle. So whatever option you'd like for navigating those. And that's how we use the Teacher Desmos Teacher Dashboard. Hope this video has been helpful. And if you like it, check out some of my other videos in the same series.